My name's Pete Wood, you're watching Hexham TV. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Ed. I'm a design student down in Brighton, but I live in Hexham for home and I've grown up here, so yeah, I know the area.
So Ed, tell me a little bit about something you've produced.
So I have a keen interest in bikes, riding them, building them, just enjoying them really. So I thought about a way that I could maybe integrate using a bike for my design process, kind of from the fear that you finish uni and you lose access to all of these workshops. I was like, how can I make a process that would allow me to carry on making stuff? So yeah, I sort of investigated, could I make a bike more capable to do that? So yeah, this kind of this idea.
What sort of things did you have to consider when you were designing the bike?
Well, how can I make it capable, like cheap and capable? How can I make it suit my needs? And how can I make it without specialist sort of kit? Because most of the time to build bikes from scratch you've got to have a whole lot of jigs and a whole lot of things in your workshop. So yeah, I was like looking for a way to make it without that, basically. Yeah.
And what skills did you have to learn to actually design and build the bike?
It was welding. I had to basically learn from scratch. I'd never done it before, so spent a while welding stuff and snapping it and welding stuff and snapping it and cutting it and bashing it and just making sure I could weld something that would be strong. So that was the main thing. And then there was just a whole bunch of other sort of metalworking stuff. Yeah, it was I thought it would be difficult to start, but I was actually quite pleased with how it came out in the end. Once I'd spent enough time practicing, I felt quite confident. So yeah, more of a matter of spending loads of time on it rather than having to be super good from the start. Yeah.
So let's have a look at the bike that you've designed. And did you sort of use someone else's frame, or did you design the frame?
The frame is just an old mountain bike that I found for very cheap, rotting in someone's garage. Which, I mean, those are kind of having a rebirth of their own. But I thought that it would clean up pretty nicely and I could change it into something that might suit me a little bit more. And the design, there's a few people who've done similar designs, but this is an adaptation to suit my personal kind of needs. Yeah.
So let's have a look at the bike then.
Sure. So for starters, I think you'll probably notice that the front wheel is a lot smaller than the back, which is a little bit quirky, and that's what initially draws people in, I think, most of the time. And that's so that if you have a load on the front of your bike, like I do, the lower down it is, the more stable the bike is and the easier it is to handle. And I think for me, I did a bike tour on a different bike last year, and I had a lot of weight on the front of my bike, and I really preferred it to push the weight rather than pull it. So that was the whole choice of that kind of thing. Yeah, so I did basically the whole, most of the rear end of the bike is as it would have come, not the paint job obviously, but in terms of the front I added an extra bit of tube, and then I welded out this platform that was, I didn't actually need a frame jig for it, it was just a whole bunch of spirit leveling and very careful, slow attaching, and once you sort of attached it on, it was quite easy to weld it all up from there. But the actual square tubing wasn't really intentional. It was because they were dumping a whole load of old school tables outside my uni. And these old school tables, I mean, I've got a friend who works in school, apparently they're like 200 quid a pop. But they're just like these melamine sort of topped school tables. And all of a square stock, I chatted to my tutor and he said, you know, square stock steel like that is pretty expensive if you were going to buy it. So I was like, well, I'll just make it out of that then. So I spent most of my time, not even welding or anything, I spent most of my time just cutting up school table chair legs or table legs, the frames of them, and just removing all the paint. It took forever. That was probably the most tedious part. So yeah, it's all made from like sort of rubbish basically, or what would have just gone to the skip, which I think is the nicest part for me, because it's not about rubbish, it's just an integral part of it, which I don't know, if we're going to get design philosophical, that's where I think it should go.
Yes.
Everything should just inherently be made of rubbish rather than be about making it about rubbish.
Yes.
That's what I think. But yeah. So
and what sort of loads could you have on the front there, or have used it for?
Well, I'm not a giant company, so I don't have a whole safety testing team, but I have given my girlfriend a lift to the pub on it before. I don't know if it would actually be rated for that, but I think comfortably it'll do 20, 30 kilos. Yeah, probably more, but because it's welded onto the frame and it's not like a pannier rack or something you'd buy and attach to your bike, it's pretty strong. And by adding another triangle, that's making it pretty strong as well. So yeah, so far so good. Hasn't cracked or bent or anything. And I've ridden it pretty hard. I've had it on some trails at home, well, down in Brighton, with quite a lot of weight on the front, and it held up great. But yeah, so there was a few other parts, like I had to buy a fork for it that was off like a small wheeled mini velo bike, kind of like an old shopper, if you know those, but a modern equivalent. I had to buy that just because they don't make anything that would be suitable for a small wheel and have a long enough steer tube. So that I had to buy. I bought the brakes, but they were sort of cheap. The original bike came with rim brakes, so I adapted the back to fit disc brakes, which was probably the most difficult part of it, which I wouldn't need to do, but it was kind of, I preferred to do it just so I could stop when I'm riding with loads of weight on it.
It's always helpful.
Always helpful being able to stop. Yeah, I did a bike tour last year on my other bike, which was an old Claude Butler that I'd sort of messed around with, and that had rim brakes, and I noticed when I was going down these big hills in the Lake District, I was like, slightly scary. So I thought, I'll put disc brakes on this, it'll be better. So yeah, and then when I first built it up, I had these kind of strange handlebars I'd cut up that I'd already bought, and they were really low, so I made these handlebars for it out of just a big piece of steel tube I found in the cupboard at uni. And yeah, I made some big risers so it fits me, because the initial frame is actually quite small for me. It's like a 19 and I'm about 6'3", so I struggle with most bikes. But this works great. It kind of behaves a little bit like a BMX kind of thing, or like a toy bike. That's how I imagine it, like a little toy. But yeah, it rides pretty good. I've brought it up home from Brighton and I've been riding it around kind of all the way up like Humsoft area and Wark and stuff, and it's been really great. You definitely get some looks though. I think people here like don't really see cargo bikes, never mind one that someone's made. So you definitely get a lot of people sort of sussing you out. I was riding it in Newcastle yesterday, and yeah, plenty of guys were chatting to me and going, what the hell is this? Yeah.
How do you want to take your design career in the future, Ed?
For me, like I sort of said earlier, for me it was about making a process that I could do without being in uni or relying on a workshop and loads of student loan to do it. So I think for me, I'm interested in sort of travel as research, and like stimulus you get from being somewhere in person rather than sitting on a laptop and reading big essays about something. So yeah, it's about this whole past year I did, my second year, it was kind of a lot of self-discovery, and most of that is just so you can figure out how you work in order to build up a process that gives you some feedback on how you actually work as a maker. So for me, I'm kind of interested in that whole travel thing, and also working with stuff that's kind of rubbish, or just like responding to objects that you find, because I love trying to understand something that I pick up. So I think if I was able to use this to maybe go to a specific location, I don't know, whether it be an industrial estate or a skip behind a school or whatever, you know, some specific area that might have a specific kind of rubbish, I'd love to just try and make some things that might respond to that place, visually or functionally. I haven't really decided that part yet, but yeah, it's kind of the start of a journey of making a process for myself, which hopefully will be really fun.
Well, we need more makers and creative people in this country, Ed, and it's great to see students like yourself actually designing something very practical and sustainable and reusable. You're learning skills all the time, which no doubt will build into a fantastic career in the future. So thanks very much for talking to Hexham TV.
All right, thanks. Cheers.